Hello, welcome to the channel. Today I will be working on the Denon UDR-110, and this is to replace the belts on the system for both of the tape loading bays. We're going to dive straight in, and first of all we've got to take these 6 screws off of the outer case, so 2 on the back and 2 either side. The casing should come off quite easily. You just slide it back ever so slightly and then lift off at the back. We then take off these 2 inner screws for the front bezel. Now we take out all of the screws on the underside, indicated here, including the 2 on the metal bezel front panel. After taking the screws out of the bottom, don't forget to hold the entire assembly inside as you're flipping it back up the right way again. Now you see the front bezel has 2 side bits on it, and I'm using a tool to get behind there just to lift it back and then slide it forwards. And you'll see why once it's off there's some tiny rectangular holes which slot 2 sort of clips on the front. Little hooks, so it slides, comes out of the back, slides forwards. In fact, the front has come loose with it, but just bear in mind there is 2 connectors. Now you can leave them on because all we're worried about is taking this whole section out, which should, because the front is off, should lift straight up. Just going to check some cables at the back. Now there's a few you should be aware of. The heads, the head plugs. One's a recording one, and then there's 2 play heads. Those are the heads in the cassette area, and then you got ribbon cables like power for the trays, and then some other ones, some larger ones there. Now when I get a little bit closer I'll show you which ones you're unplugging. The record head, so this deck is on this side of the board and this deck is on this side of the board, just so that you make a note of that and they match up. If in doubt, get yourself a nice coloured pen and just put a line, a mark, so that you can line them back up again. Now the record head plug is smaller than the play head, so these are play heads. And I'm going to mark that one. I want to do that a different colour, don't I? So I've got green for deck B or 2, and then deck A1 will be orange. and I've only got one plug to unplug for that one. So this one is now off. I think that's the power to the decks, and the same with this side. And again, I've marked them up so it makes it easier to line them back up again, get them back in. Now last of all is this ribbon, and I believe you push down on the plastic around the outside of it and then the pins come out, and then you need to protect those pins because you obviously don't want to bend the pins for when they go back in. It's really difficult to line them all back up again. Move this forwards a bit now. Now you can see the ribbons, and you just need to push down and they pop right out like that. See why you need to protect them? This ribbon's push down bit is more to the rear. Push down on there, and again that slips right out. So now this whole bit should separate from the other bit, and we can carefully move this out of the way because we no longer need it in front of us at the moment. Then we can concentrate back on this. Now we do need to move these out of the way. We don't want to bend them. They're a pain in the ass to get back in, straighten up again, so you kind of want to move them out of the way. You could put a bit of masking tape on them just to sort of protect them a bit, but what I want to do is undo these 4 screws to remove the plastic decks. They should separate off this metal plate. They're just sort of like held in at the back there, look. So you just undo them and then move on to... Now, you got 2 ground cables as well. There's one here, one there. You just need to remember where they go. Now, you could just mark it up. Same with that one. And then that just makes it a little bit easier later. Now we've done that, we should be able to lift this plate off, and that reveals the inside. Now, these should be able to separate, there you go, and they are literally copies of each other. Luckily for me, this one still has all the ribbons on it, the belts on it. So I should be able to copy the belts onto this one because I've only got one belt and the rest of the deck is perished. So I'm going to use this one as a copy for that. So let's get inside that one. So from what I can see, 1, 2, 3, and then that plate should be able to lift off and reveal all the belts. And then mind these cables, but they should. You've got to remember where everything goes. So you've again got another ground bit there, but this is the point where you don't need to go in it really much further. So this is literally the last stage of this. Just tuck that one aside, and I should, I hope, be able to lift this off. Oh. There's a hidden screw just in there, look. I don't know if you can see that, but it's right there. And it is different from the others. So, keep that one. Oh, it's a nice long one. I think that goes right the way through something else a little bit further down. Just need to remember where that one went. All the others are pretty much the same thread. And then this should come off and reveal our belts. As you can see, that one's just come right off straight away. But I do have a good indicator where it's come from, so I'm just going to put it back on quickly so that we can just see it where it was. Very loose. So on the bottom of these two capspan wheels, there is a little groove for the belt to sit in. That's nice and wobbly, isn't it? But yeah, this one's really loose. But this is the working deck. This is the working side. So for that to be quite loose, the diagram for the service manual shows you it as a bit different, but I can tell you from the motor, so from this pinion here, we're going to the topmost part of the capstan on this side, and that just freely spins around there, and then this one goes to that side. But in order, this one goes on first, and it's a, so you've got two square belts. When I say square, these ones are, I don't know if you can see it, but they are literally a square belt. This one's a flat belt. So the bottom one goes on first, and that goes underneath here, and I can just about see where it sits. I'm going to replace all of these anyway. But yeah, so that one goes on the bottom, and that connects. So that one goes to there, and it goes on first. Then this one goes on second, and you can see the groove just on the bottom here, just underneath the main motor belt, underneath, and it goes in the groove on this one. And then from the next belt, the last belt, is the flat belt, which sits on the top there. I don't think you can mix the belts up. This one is longer than the bottommost one. I believe this one is dealing with the fast forward and rewind, because you'll see a bit of plastic just flip from side to side. And then these are playback ones, forwards and backwards. Right, I better get on and do that. And this is the play deck. This one was working. The recording deck is the one that's failed, and it's only got one belt left on it. The others have perished. Now, if you've got a cassette that's stuck in the recording one, I'm going to take a hunch that the head of the play deck is still stuck inside of the cassette, which is preventing the eject button from raising the cassette up in order to eject it out, because the head is still protruding inside of the cassette. So it needs the belts, I believe, to help it retract, and then the other mechanism, which is the belt on this side, can then lift the cassette up and then eject it out the front. And just in case you get muddled up, remember the recording one has another head on it. So that little header cable on the play deck, that one's a clone of that one. That one has an additional one, so that makes it a recording. Just to be sure, I wrote recording on the bottom of this plate here to make it a little bit easier. And then it's just remembering which side the recording one goes in when it goes back into the main chassis. Now I've got these parts from webspareparts.com. These were quite difficult to find. I've been struggling all over the web, Googling and all sorts. And I just literally found it on their site and it looks like they put the belts together. I know which ones go in this kit because that's a custom label with my name on it. Alright then, in this packet there's probably more belts than I need because these are the ones that go on the side. This bit here, I believe they've given you the replacement ones for that as well, which is very easy to do. You don't have to go this far in to be able to do that. So what I would do is lay these belts out so you've got 2 sets. So these are the flat ones, these are very obvious. These will be the last ones that go on the underside. So if you can still see it, this flat one here. So that one will be one set. And you can see now it's very obvious. That's a pair. So you need one for each there. And then the slightly longer ones that go between the 2 metal capstan wheels there. That's that. So now it's just a case of putting that to one side, and then I've only got one set to work with. I think these, the side ones for the opposite side of this, to raise the deck out, I think I'm just going to leave them to one side and then do it right at the end because they can be done at any time. If you really need to, you can go straight back in and just get easier access than going all the way in just to do these 2 belts. These are very easy. So first of all, number 1 is the main drive belt off the motor. So that's nice and easy. Secondly, the longer belt between the 2 metal discs. And then last of all, your plastic gear one, which is there. And then we just reverse, put them back on. Ooh, yeah, there is a nice slight tighter feel to it. And then this one, the other squared off belt, and that goes between the 2 wheels. Nice and easy, that feels nice as well. And then last of all, the main drive belt. Don't worry too much if it's hanging off a little bit. What you do is you just start spinning the wheel and it all flattens out. So there you go, that's nicely done. I'm quite happy with that. Okay, according to the manual, this belt, rather than goes around, so this is the middle square belt, rather than going completely around that, according to the manual, it goes off this corner, so it goes off the corner of that one, and then in the lid you've got a little wheel there, and it needs to sit around that. So tricky as it might be, we need to get it on there. Now what I would suggest is maybe worry about getting it on there first, lowering it, and there is, in that little gap, can you see there's a little bit of metal? We need to make sure that goes underneath the belt, like that. See that? The belt's about to come up on top of it. And then with a pair of tweezers, we should be able to move that as we're lowering this plate to the side of the wheel where we need it to be, and then jiggle it all into place, which sounds like fun, right? That is actually quite tricky. It should be doable. I've got that where it needs to be. There we go. And then that over there. Cool. So I've got the belt where it needs to be. I've now got to jiggle all the rest of this, so the wires need to come back up on the top again. There we go. So is everything still in place? Yeah, still looks good. Can we lower it? We need to get it over the top of these. There we go. Now that should be in place. So in theory, that belt is now going around there, skimming the edge of this wheel, and then going around a little flywheel, not a flywheel, a gear over here, and then coming back around there again. Weird angle, but it got me questioning it because the belt ran across that metal. Because it ran across that metal on either side, it was rubbing against it. So it made me sort of doubt myself and look at the service manual again. It runs across here, around there, and then back round there. Cool. So now I'm back here. I've kind of reassembled that last bit. So the plates on the bottom of this lot, this is reattached to these two. And then I've just flip them over, put them back in. Again, you need to make sure you've got them the right way round, because you've got your recording head, you've got two cables coming out of there basically. You've got to make sure it's on this side because they cross over each other, remember? Now, we need to get that ribbon back on. First thing I'm going to do though is make sure some of these cables are in the right place to reach. So just bear in mind, at the end, this whole lot comes the rest of the way. At the moment, it's about an inch away from its homing position. And the reason why that is because by the time we bring this back, we need basically clearing to put these ribbons back on, and they are flat. There's no twists. They fold underneath this bit here on the outside of the metal plate, and they go all the way to the back, and then should be able to plug them straight in from where they are. Okay, so again, that is on one side, you push down the opposite side and it should slot in. And then this side, it's the nearest side to you, it pushes in. So that should go in quite nicely, like so. So those little ribbons are in. We can now move everything back here. So just make sure we've got these leads. So single head, recording head and play head, and then power. And again, power on that side. Just to make sure you haven't left any underneath this lot as it comes back. So then that all moves back. You can kind of work out where it needs to go, but it will generally just slot back in to its grooves. And then you can go ahead, plug in the remaining wires because they should be able to reach. And then remember these two, they cross over each other. So this one goes over that side. Just going to rethread that one actually. I think I've got that wrapped around something there. So I'm just going to pull that back through carefully, and then under, and then bring it back. Everything is back where it needs to be. Cool, cool, cool. And then I've marked it with orange onto there. And then this one has the smaller one, so it drops down to the bottom at the back of this one. So that's in there. And then this one goes up there, and they do go only one way round, but I've marked them to make it a little bit easier for me. And then that's pretty much back where it needs to be. So now it's just a case of getting the front bezel on, putting all the screws in the back, and then we should be at a testing point. So I'll put it on its side because nothing is holding that in at the moment. So what you can do is that one, and that one, and maybe that far side is going to hold the metal plate in. So these are the ones I would start on, and then obviously put the remaining ones in just to get it in, held in place. Right then, I brought the hi-fi in, reattached the ribbon cable. This is all pretty much screwed back in. I've just got the side bezel bits, and then I've got the casing to go on. Now I wanted to get it to this point because I wanted to show you something. Now this does go in, and if you watch it, it goes down, and this is number 1, deck 1, and it plays that way. Now you can't hear this, for legal reasons I can't play the music, and then obviously that's the other side. The head comes out, flips around and goes back in again. Now because of the belts, it couldn't really do that on this one because they completely perished, and the belts have part of the sequence of pulling back the playhead. Now if you can't do that, your cassette gets stuck. Now just going to eject that one, eject here, and then pop that back in. You can see the head sat back at the moment until I press play. The head then goes in. Just going to flip and play the other side, just make sure that's working, and it is. So that's good. And then eject. See the head go back completely? Now it can eject it. Now if yours gets stuck, you can push the head back and then push the rail, but you need to take this whole assembly out in order to do that, as if you're doing the belts. So you sort of like force it, if you like. You can see it trying to lift the tape up, and you can see the head in the way. But you can just press the head back with a flathead screwdriver, not on the head, the plate, the metal plate that the head is on. Do not put a screwdriver on the head of the playhead, which is that little lump you can just see through there. Do not put it on that. You will damage it, and you don't want to do that. But yeah, I think I've got a fully working cassette deck now. What I'd like to do is get to a point where I can just hit record and just see if it works that way. Cool, how exciting. Thanks for watching. Until next time, bye for now.